Can everybody see that back there? Do we need to adjust the lighting at all? Okay, cool. All right, well listen, thank you so much, David. Thank you to Ivy Tech and Soror Denise for allowing me to come home and say hello to some, and good to see you again to others, and my sister-in-law's here, and my friends came from Columbus, and so this is one of those moments that you hold on to as you get older. It's so good just to be here and to see that Carver is still here. You all are still here in the midst of turmoil across the world. We're still here. So that's a good thing, that's a good thing. And I understand now what it means to say, like my mom did, to wake up in my right mind. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When you see the headlines, when you listen to the news and you wonder what world we're living in, I've never, ever seen the kind of movement that I witness right now. But I'm not going to linger on it. I'm going to talk about an idea of what would the world be like if we would give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I see my brother Gary Rohn from Old National Bank just came in. He and I have been friends for 40 years, and so I'm so glad that he's here. We went to Fisk together, and it's so crazy how the world works. Gary's from Columbus, and he lives in Evansville. I'm from Evansville, and he lives in Columbus, and I live in Columbus. But, excuse me? We can do that sometimes. But at any rate, I love him like a brother. As they say, I take a bullet for you because you and I go way, way back. And I've got my girlfriends, Ann and Norzetta, here from Columbus that didn't want me to drive alone on that lonely, dismal, rainy trip from Columbus. I started seeing shadows, and I thought, oh, Lord, just take me on down this 64, and we made it. But at any rate, again, I want to thank Ivy Tech. I want to thank the Carver alumni that are in the room. I see Talmadge is here, David. Everybody that Carver touched has been an influence in my life. And I'm just glad that you came to kind of hear about how Carver impacted my world vision. So as I said, I want to talk about the value of inclusion in America based upon the framework of Carver Community Center's impact on me. So it's Black History Month, but why do we even need a Black History Month? Why are we still trying to get Black history in the history books? Why is being Black not accepted at this point in life? When it comes down to it, you're still judged by the color of your skin. After all these years, after all these people have died, we're still judged by the color of our skin. God, as they say, we've been a long way, but we have a long way to go. An even longer way to go now. Because now it's the haves versus the have-nots. It's some kind of division that we're seeing. If you come from another country and you live here, all of a sudden you're less than the people that came from European countries. So we need to, as they say, stay woke as to what's going on in Washington, in Indianapolis, in Columbus, Ohio. We need to really be vigilant and look to see what's happening, not just on the surface, but behind the scenes. Doubt. Doubt destroys dreams. When you doubt yourself, when people doubt you, you become discouraged. You become frustrated. And it's almost like a cancer. It spills onto your family. It spills onto the community. When people begin to second guess you and your intentions and your dignity, and then you give up. We cannot afford to let that happen in 2018. We have to give people the benefit of the doubt. I would not be here today unless somebody gave me the benefit of the doubt to give me the opportunity to pursue my dreams. Bosse High School, okay? I'm a senior in high school, and I want to send my transcripts to Ivy League schools. Mr. Couch, I don't know if you all remember him, he was the senior counselor. He told me to forget about that. He told me that I should go to be a secretary or a nurse or something like that. And he was doing me a favor by sending my transcripts to the colleges that he thought I ought to go to. Not happening. Vernon Alonzo took off work that day, went to Bosse High School, sat there and waited for Mr. Couch. And my father looked him dead in his eye and he says, you are going to do what we want you to do because we pay your salary. And if she wants to go to Harvard, you send that transcript. Parents, what's the lesson here? Can't be spectators. You got to be in your schools. You got to know those teachers. You got to be in the PTA. You got to be in the moment with those schools. Otherwise, your children are going to be taken for granted. Doubt, 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 doubt. You know what it feels like when you wake up in the morning and you've got something important to do, and then that little devil jumps in your head and says, oh my gosh, what if so-and-so's in the room? What if my boss doesn't come to support me? What if this happened? That's called doubt. And what are the different kinds of doubt that we deal with? Ethnicity. I'm black. How is that going to impact me getting a job? I'm Hispanic. I'm Asian. I'm Appalachian. How are they going to judge me? Why can't they look at me for what's inside of me rather than what's on the outside of me? Why are they going to judge me by the way I speak rather than the content of my words? Gender. Women versus men or other. I don't know how many jobs I haven't received because I was a woman. I know that right now, black women are a scary proposition for employers because they can't control us. They can't control what we say, and we can't be bought. So we lose opportunities because we're kind of the empty set. People don't know what we might do.
That's right. That's right.
And they're right. They're absolutely right. You're not going to make me do something just because. I worked for the government. I know what that's like. It's a dog and pony show, and you do it because you get a paycheck. But at some point in your life, you say, no more. I'm not doing this. My dignity is more important. Appearance. When I was in banking, Gary, they wanted me to tell a young woman, first bank I worked for, that she would be a much more presentable bank manager if she would lose some weight.
Oh, come on.
That's the truth. I was in California. And I said, I can't do that. They said, well, you've got to look the part. You got to look the part. And she was prevented from moving forward for her appearance. That's not the way the world should work. Ability. I have a deep commitment to people with different abilities. Whether they're physical limitations or mental limitations, 67% of people with disabilities are unemployed. Whether they can do the job or not, they can't even get in the door. Right? Education. Used to be a high school diploma. Now it's a bachelor's degree. Now they're switching up, saying you got to have a certification. Now you got to have a master's, a doctorate. They keep raising the bar, folks. Regardless of what your ability is, regardless of what you can do, you don't get a chance when you're dealing with the doubt of the employer. You don't even get a chance. And age, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Age. We've got 4 generations in the workforce now. We've got boomers, all the boomers. Say hey. Okay. X's, Y's, millennials. We got all of them. And we all have something to offer.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I learned from my students at Columbus State Community College. I listen to them and I learn from them. And the same thing goes when they talk to me. I can help them understand some of the complexities of how things are made and how things happen in the United States today. I've been there, I've done that. I used to sit in the Indiana University radio and TV department during the exodus from the Vietnam War. I had no clue what was going on, but I had to write stories about a war that we could never have won to begin with. And I would sit there and think, why am I trying to explain this? Because there is no explanation why they were sending our people, our men over there. We had no dog in the fight, but that's what I had to do. And I didn't understand it, but I do now. I understand that it's all politics, it's all persuasion, it's all about control, it's all about perception. I teach marketing communication. I tell them it's all political. Everything that you do today is political. Every soundbite on TV or radio, political. Posturing, fake news, distractions. It's complicated. Just listen to the 6 o'clock news because you don't know what's real and what's fake. And so we're surrounded by an environment of doubt. We're surrounded by distrust. We're surrounded by individuals who want to confuse the difference between right and wrong. But thank God Verna and Alonzo made right and wrong very clear for us. I have no problems today knowing the difference between right and wrong. Just from hearing it from the very first time, have no problem. Anybody know who that is? That's me. That's a Stanley Hall, 2nd grader. I don't know where my mom, I think my mom got that in the chubby section of the Sears and Roebuck. But I was optimistic. There might have been 3 or 4 black girls in my class at the time. And my favorite place in the whole world was the library near Baird Park.
Yeah.
That was daycare. That was an escape. That was a safe refuge. And Mom, I'm going to the library. I'd sit over there and I'd get lost in those National Geographic magazines and looking at history books, and it was a place that I could dream. I didn't have any doubts in the library. I could be whatever I wanted to be. I could be anywhere in the world in a library. Quiet, and I could think. And so that's kind of where it all began. My parents never got the benefit of finishing college. Economic reasons, family reasons. But one thing for sure, they were going to make sure that we had the opportunity to go to school, even if they didn't. And my mother was a FAFSA queen. She could figure out how to fill out them forms, and she did it with so many people fighting for the right for black students from Evansville to go to school. Even though she couldn't go, she wanted that. My father, his employment was his thing. He was fortunate enough to be the chauffeur for Meade Johnson. This little girl right here was shamed when her father drove up in that limousine at Stanley Hall School. Because why does he have to drive the car? Why can't he be sitting in the back? Little did I know my dad was getting the education. Can you hear me? Okay. He was getting the education that he didn't get at University of Evansville. He knew economics. He knew some foreign languages. He was articulate. He knew politics, listening to Me Johnson and his buddies. But he kept his mouth shut. He kept driving that car until one day, affirmative action came forward. And Me Johnson gave my father the benefit of the doubt to come from the garage into the administrative offices in employment. And as a result of that action, my sister-in-law got a job there, met my brother, and y'all know the rest of that story. And so many other people were given the benefit of the doubt in employment. Not that my father wouldn't have done it beforehand, but nobody believed that he had the skills until Me Johnson gave him the benefit of the doubt. Here's my whole posse. When I got my master's degree, it was like Juneteenth. I mean, my father, I don't know why his hand was wrapped up, Carolyn. I still don't understand that. Huh? Gout? Okay. I wondered about that. That's my mom and my brother and my sister-in-law, my nephew and my dad. And they packed up like the Clampetts and came to Bloomington, Indiana. And we celebrated. We celebrated because when I got the MBA, 2 years before that, I didn't even know what an MBA was. I applied for a fellowship to go to get my MBA, and my GPA was below average. My GRE score was below average. But when I did the interview and I expressed to them why I deserved a chance to get into the consortium for graduate study in management, the man who was interviewing me said, okay, I think you can do it. But I didn't have the right credentials to get into that program. But once I was in there, I wasn't going to be outdone. When you're sitting next to a Caucasian male from, let's say, Wisconsin, that gets a 99 on a calculus exam, to me that was like magic. I can't even imagine how you do that. But I was going to learn. So I got a tutor. And for those quantitative courses that I struggled with, my tutor came to me twice a week and brought me up to where I could compete with the guy from Wisconsin. So that was another example of me benefiting from the benefit of the doubt. Another story. Lazarus, as you know, came to Evansville, eventually became Macy's. Well, Charles Lazarus was a visiting professor at Indiana University, and there weren't many women in the MBA program back in the 70s, let alone black people or minorities. He was my marketing professor, and I sat in the middle chair, the first row, every time I went to class. And I asked questions, and I became engaged, and I talked with him. And at the end of the course, with an A, he says, do you have a job? I said, well, not really. He says, you need to see my store. He hired me, and within 6 months, I was marketing manager of all the restaurants, which is where I met my partners from Glory Foods in Columbus, Ohio. And he gave me kind of a blank check. Do whatever you think you need to do. The benefit of the doubt. And that's how Glory Foods actually came together, because of my experience in marketing at the Lazarus Food Division. And I'm claiming the fact that you all have a Macy's. Because I told him, I said, you need to go to Evansville with Lazarus. And that's what he did. Okay, Gary, recognize this picture? You think I kind of stand out in that picture a little? This is Society Bank. As Bob Jones, yes, Bob Jones gave Gary Rohn and I the benefit of the doubt in the 80s, early 80s. We both applied for positions in business banking. Gary got the Central City. I got the East Side. Nobody in Columbus had two black people working in the same business banking department. And we literally had the kind of relationship with Bob Jones that we could call him on the phone and say, hey, there's somebody here in my office that has a great business plan, and I really believe that they could do it, and they can make this dream come true. And he'd say, if you believe in it, go do it. Doesn't happen anymore, folks. Bob Jones gave us the benefit of the doubt, and as a result of that, we were able to fund so many minority and women-owned businesses in Central Ohio that the community thought we were as big as Bank One, and we were a small bank at the time. But Bob Jones, who's now here at Old National Bank, gave us the benefit of the doubt. So going back to Glory Foods, I'm going to tell you that my partners came to me as a banker and said, we want to get into the grocery store market. There's La Choy for Asian, there's Ortega for Hispanic foods, but there's no soul food in the stores, and we want you to help us do that. But they just wanted to put beans in a can and put them on the shelves, or greens, and then you got to take them home and figure out what to do, and cook all day and clean them and all that kind of stuff. I was not feeling that at all. In the 80s, women were going to work in executive positions. They were raising families. There was no time for guesswork when you got off work. So I said, well, if you want me to do that, I'm out. I want something ready to go, cooking for dummies, just put it in a pan, a microwave, and the microwaves were new at the time. I was like the first person in line to get a microwave. Because I couldn't cook. My mother didn't like cooking, and she never taught me, so I didn't like to cook. So I said, you'll have to do better than that. You're going to have to give me a value-added product that I can just come home, stop by KFC, get some chicken, get some black-eyed peas in a can, some greens, and put them on a plate, and be done with it and have everybody be happy and let me read the newspaper. So they said, well, put it together. So I wrote the business plan, and then we got an appointment through a contact of mine at Kroger. So I went out to Kroger with my partner, Bill Williams, and we thought it was just going to be a discussion. So I got in front of Kroger, and I was just talking about my idea of having pre-seasoned, convenient soul food called Glory Foods. And so we were talking, no PowerPoint, no handouts, no copies, microfiche, overheads, nothing. And then the black guy who was a buyer that I knew said, we're in. We're going to give you an order within the next week. And all the other buyers said, yes, this is going to be great. So Bill and I left, and we sat down outside the Kroger headquarters, and we said, well, what are we going to do? We didn't have anything. We didn't have a can of greens. We had no packaging. We had nothing but an idea. Kroger waited 1.5 years for us to come up with that product. And we kept giving them updates. The biggest hurdle was the FDA, because before that, spinach was the norm. You know, spinach is mushy. Greens, we don't eat greens like that. So coming up with the method of cooking the greens, seasoning the greens first of all, putting them in a can, sealing the can, and cooking them all at once had never been done before. New technology from a fledgling African-American owned company. Huge roadblocks all along the way. But after 1.5 years, and the credibility of Ohio State University, who was our partner in developing these products, we got through. And Kroger took the order. So they gave us the opportunity. and gave us the benefit of the doubt. My last full-time job was as Director of Entrepreneurship and Small Business for the state of Ohio. And those of you that remember 2008 through 2012, it was a very, very difficult time for everybody in the Midwest. Ohio was hit hard. The 8th worst place in the United States in terms of foreclosures and job loss and companies shipping jobs to Mexico. And I was hired to manage and direct the small business division for the state of Ohio. We had no money, and all we could do is do outreach and use creative methods of coming up with ways to keep people in business. And I think the turning point for me, some of you know how much I love animals and love dogs. I went to a meeting in Wilmington when DHL was getting ready to pull out of Wilmington, taking about 12,000 jobs with it to Kentucky. Devastating. On a Saturday, there must have been 500 people waiting to talk to us about this situation. But what did it for me was when the lady from the Humane Society came up and said, "I can't take any more of your dogs. I can't do it." She was in tears because people were just coming and leaving their dogs at the Humane Society because they didn't want them to suffer because they couldn't feed them anymore. I said, "I'm going to do whatever I need to do to keep this from happening to Ohio." And we were successful. We went from the worst place in the Midwest to the best and the 9th in the nation after being 29th in the United States in 4 years. Yeah. But I got a break. I had dinner with Lee Fisher, who was the lieutenant governor, and I told him my vision of what I thought we needed to do. And he hired me and he promoted me and gave me the authority to try out my ideas, and we were successful. Okay, getting to the end of my presentation. I lost my job in 2011 because of the new governor. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I went back to school at, let's just say, a later point in my life. And in 5.5 years, I finished my doctoral program. As you can see, it's 167 pages. I studied day and night. My life was my computer after losing my job. I started teaching, but I didn't know if I could do it. That self-doubt hit me. I didn't know if I had the resiliency. I didn't know if I had the aptitude at that point in my life, because I had taken some hits along the way, lost some loved ones, and I was just a little concerned that I couldn't make the switch. So I just want to read a couple of passages from the dissertation, and I think kind of summarize why I did it. I said, "I dedicate this academic milestone to my late parents, Alonzo and Verna Cooper. Although neither completed their education, they were both lifelong learners and made the necessary sacrifices so I could enjoy a life of prosperity and achievement." Moving right along. I have to acknowledge my girlfriends and my sister and brother. Above all, I'm grateful to God for allowing me to complete this goal. I thank my children, Micah and Malik, and my grandson, Malachi, for surrounding me with love and support. I thank my brother and sister, Conrad and Carolyn, who stood beside me like pillars through every storm and rainbow. Finally, I also thank all of my sister friends who provide a constant safety net for me and make my journey on earth a joy. And they're here with me today. So, where are we? The world would be a happier, more peaceful place if we all tried to understand instead of judging, paused before reacting, and gave each other the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming the worst. This transcends race, gender, age, ability. Instead of assuming somebody's going to hurt you or threaten you? How about just listening to them? How about just being quiet? You can't learn if your mouth is running all the time. And honestly, I've learned that if we're all at the table, you're going to get better ideas. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the world now, is that we got to give people the benefit of the doubt instead of judging all the time. Look what I found. Remember that? The hill? That was my refuge. That was my safe place. That's where I could let people know what I didn't know. That's where I could meet people and network and learn about etiquette and arts and crafts and what was going on in the community. That was Carver Community Center on the hill. It was an institution that I take with me everywhere I go, because I know that Mrs. Porter and Miss Bess and Mr. Landers and Mr. Joyner and all the people that were on the board are depending on me to keep the Carver brand alive and respectable. And all of you are a part of that too. We don't have many black institutions that we can claim, and Carver's one of them. And it's been around for 70 plus years, and we've got to do everything we can to keep it going for another 70 plus years for our heirs, for the people that come behind us, for the children, because we can't depend on any other institution to do what Carver does. Thank you so much. I love each and every one of you. I wish you the best. I ask you all to go out and tell people to come together, to vote, to change the dynamics of what we're living in now, so that our kids and our grandkids can live in a better place. Thank you.